Why do we continue to repeat the same patterns over and over again in relationships? That is what we are going to dive into today. I know you've probably experienced it before because if you are a human, you probably have relationships. And if you have relationships, well, chances are you're probably repeating a lot of the same patterns over and over again, and probably asking yourself, why am I doing this? What's wrong with me? Why am I broken? What needs to change? And so let's dive in. But if you can, please hit that like, subscribe button. It makes this little channel, this podcast grow, and it just means so much to me. I read all of the comments, and it just makes my heart flutter. So thank you so much for supporting this mission. So let's dive into it. A couple of things that we need to understand first is our biology, our animalistic tendencies that we cannot bypass. We have a nature inside of us. It is our biology. We are humans. We have a nature outside of us, our environment, that we cannot dismiss. The more that we disconnect from our nature, the more that we're disconnected from nature in general, the more issues that we see. So I say that because you have a nature inside of you, which what I mean by that is your animalistic tendencies, your instincts, your patterns that have been passed down to you that you did not necessarily learn, and you cannot bypass them. We have forgotten that we are animals first, and we are thinkers. We are thinking, storytelling creatures second. So there's animalistic tendencies inside of us that we cannot bypass our biology, meaning that one of the rules that we cannot bypass is that we, as humans, our body, on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, on a physical level, are always seeking homeostasis. Now, homeostasis just means balance. We're always seeking balance in our life. Our body is a balancing machine. If something is wrong on this side, if I hurt this shoulder, then I'm going to experience issues potentially in this hip or on this side of my neck. Your body is constantly striving for balance. The same thing on an emotional level. If there's an emotion we have not let ourselves feel, well, your body is going to be seeking homeostasis and seeking completion of that emotion. So homeostasis is one thing that we cannot bypass. Our body is a balancing machine. Our soul, you could say your soul is a balancing machine as well, which I'll get into. And then the second thing is that all of life is striving for growth. 1, homeostasis. 2, growth. So we have balance, growth. All of life is striving for balanced growth. If you look outside at trees, at nature, everything is growing outwards, expressing itself outwards in a balanced way. If a tree starts to grow too far this way, well, then it's going to swing itself back this way because it doesn't want to fall over and die, right? It wants to find the sunshine wherever it's at. It's looking for the nutrients so that it can grow in a balanced way. Too much growth without balance, we experience issues. Not enough growth, we experience issues as well. So the reason that I say this is because this speaks to what Freud called as repetition compulsion, and what Peter Levine, the father of modern somatics, spoke to as reenactment. And basically what it means is that we repeat it until we complete it. You will continue to experience the same issues over and over again, and you will repeat the same patterns until we complete it, until we learn the new pattern, until we have an opportunity to choose a new pattern. So it's called reenactment. And the definition of reenactment is a biological compulsion to repeat the same behaviors that were necessary in the presence of a stressor so that we can find resolution and complete it. Meaning that if we were in a relationship and somebody was abusive to us in some sort of way emotionally, or we have these tendencies to attract people that put us down or make us feel less than, well, we're going to continue to attract the same person over and over again because our body and our being and our soul is asking us to learn the new pattern. It's asking us to maybe say no. It's asking us to complete whatever we needed to do for our own growth, for our own balance, so that we can grow, so that we can evolve, so that we can find balance within ourselves. Your body and your being does not like holding on to an emotion. Emotions are energy in motion, and they're designed to move through us. A lot of the times we can't have clarity of our mind because we're so bogged down and muddied by emotions that are trapped inside of us, right? If I'm feeling the heartbreak right now, or if somebody just cheated on me, or I just got burned by somebody, I'm going to be feeling a lot of emotions, and it's going to be hard for me to think clearly. We think that clarity comes from clarity of the mind, but clarity of the mind actually comes from clarity of our emotional state. If you've ever been in a relationship that's incredibly emotionally draining, then it's really hard to think clearly because it takes a tremendous amount of energy from our system to hold back emotions flowing through us, because our body wants completion. It wants to come back to baseline. It wants to come back to homeostasis. So our biology, you could say our soul, is always seeking resolution. It's always seeking completion. And it does that through reenactment, meaning that not just you consciously, but your biology, and I use the term biology and spirituality as a synonymous thing. In my opinion, I believe that the life force that is breathing you, your biology, that's repairing your cells, that's animating your life force, to me, and this is my opinion, it's the same thing as your spirit. You could say your spirit or your soul is seeking to grow in this lifetime. So it's going to continue to call in the same situations over and over again until you learn the new adaptive pattern, until you find resolution within yourself. And that happens on a physical level, on an emotional level, and on a mental level as well. So let's break these up into these three parts. So say that you find yourself in a relationship where you're repeating the pattern of not being able to slow down and be present in intimacy, or you're having a hard time feeling sensation or cultivating sexual energy with yourself and or your partner. And let's say that it's because your body potentially is registering this physical connection as a threat. So it's defending itself. And maybe at some point in your life, I'll say this, all of us have some sort of sexual trauma. Trauma is subjective experience, meaning that it could have been something so small. It didn't have to be like you experienced this massive sexual trauma. It could have been that something happened and you felt ashamed of yourself and your body just kind of contracted in it. And then so now you're having a hard time opening up and being fully present to sensation in an experience. Well, maybe what happened in that moment of you feeling shame is you needed to let your body completely shake, or you needed to actually take a deep breath and expand through that shame and let yourself feel it and still be seen at the same time. Or maybe now when it comes to shame is one of those emotions that actually it actually blocks the true emotion from coming through. It's an emotional blocker. Shame is like the locks that keep bad habits in place. It is the locks that shut down our emotional fluidity. So if I feel shame around being sad or feeling anger or feeling grief around something, well, then that shame is going to block the emotion that needed to move through me in the moment. So maybe it's the completion of some sort of physical movement that you needed to do, and maybe that's actually with another person. So we often we call in other people, this idea of reenactment, because most of our wounding happened in relation to another person. It did not just happen when we were by ourselves. And so the body keeps the score, but it keeps the score of what happened in relation to other people. We are mammals. This is another part of our nature that we cannot bypass, is that we are biological beings, that we actually thrive in connection. Healing is a byproduct of connection. Reenactment happens in connection. And that's why you can do all of the work by yourself to feel so solid in yourself and so aligned, but then you go get in a relationship and then all of your stuff starts to come up. And this is because this is where the reenactment happens. This is where the repetition compulsion happens. Something that your body's been holding on to, it's now been exposed because you have another person that's actually bringing it up and triggering it, right? So it could be the completion of, like, I needed to let my body shake. I needed to move in a sensual way instead of contract. Maybe I needed to feel sad for a moment and let that sadness move through me so I can come back to baseline of joy and ecstasis. Maybe it was a mental story that's been framed inside of our head that every time we're in a relationship, every time I start to go get intimate with another person, it's going to reflect back that past experience with me. So this is how reenactment continues to happen in our life. And it's like you cannot skip steps. A lot of us, we want to get to a certain level in our life, but we have to move step by step by step. We have to repeat certain patterns. The same thing happens in business. A lot of people want to come out and build this massive business, but you haven't earned it yet. You want to build this incredible relationship. Well, you haven't gone through the trials and tribulations of reenacting your patterns and then learning from it and slowly building a deeper foundation. So the other way that this reenactment plays out in our life is the paradox of familiar pain, meaning that if at one point in your life you were going through something painful, but it's something familiar, like you had a father or mother who was incredibly critical, well, then your body and your brain and your nervous system would rather experience familiarity, because familiarity is safe, than it would rather experience new. New has too many variables, and especially when you're in a defensive state, or you're contracted, or you have emotions, or you're in a fight or flight state, or your nervous system's not open, you're going to default to familiarity. Your body's going to want familiarity. So this causes us to attract those same archetypes, those same people as our parents most of the time, our mom or our dad. If we had a father who loved us, but that love actually came with criticism, a lot of the times we will continue to call in partners that love us, but they might be incredibly critical on us. If we were to, if we experience love as a child, but also our parents abandoned us or didn't have time for us, then we're going to continue to call in partners that abandon us, right? If our parents, abused us in any sort of emotional way, parentifying us or putting us in a caretaker role, or any sort of emotional or physical abuse, we might call in partners that continue to abuse us. And so what's happening is, in this situation that you are in, and you find yourself repeating a pattern over and over again, life is asking you a question. Life is saying, what is the new pattern that I need to learn right now? What is the new action? What is the thing that I need to feel? How do I find completion of whatever's been stuck inside of me? And then once I've completed it, what is the new pattern? Maybe I needed to tell this person to fuck off. Or maybe I just needed to say no and claim my boundaries. Or maybe it's actually that I needed to claim what I'm wanting. Maybe I had a client who spent a lot of time in open relationships, right? We've seen the popularity in open relationships nowadays where, it's, in my opinion, there's no right or wrong relationship. I don't have a stance necessarily on it. But what I've seen with people in open relationships, it's an easy way to forego commitment of claiming what it is that you want. It's an easy way to keep things open so I don't have to lock into something, and then I can keep options open and I can flow with life, right? There's a different thing when you're in a committed relationship, that it's hard, and there are boundaries around it, and there's a structure, and that means that you're committed to upholding this structure. But what I experienced was, this client of mine who had been in a relationship for 3 years, in an open relationship, secretly inside did not want to be in the open relationship, but never actually said it. And so what happened was, their partner, who they actually wanted to be in a committed relationship, came to them one day and was like, I actually want to be in a committed relationship with another person. I actually don't want to be in an open relationship anymore. And actually, I think I'm going to marry this other person. And at that point in time, you can imagine what happened inside of this person's body. They were flooded with probably a multitude of emotions: anger, sadness, fear, grief, the grief of shattering the story that was painted in their mind of what the future held, the emotions of what the amount of potential anger that one would have towards themselves of not actually claiming and saying the thing that they wanted to, and then the physical body that either wants to move towards it and fight this thing that's going on, and maybe not fight this person, but wants to, start an argument, or maybe wants to flee and run away, or maybe just freezes in the moment and they go into dorsal vagal shutdown, where they actually are protecting themselves from feeling anything. And so what I experienced was, as I was working with this person, I helped them get into I helped them complete all the necessary things that their body and their being and their biology needed to do. And then, after 6 months, a year, they find themselves in another relationship, and the same thing ends up happening. And that's because life, your soul, your biology, you are a magnetic human. You have an electrical bubble around you that is your extension of your nervous system that's communicating with your reality. Some people call this the law of attraction. I just call it the magnetism of your electricity, and the state of your nervous system is calling in opportunities for you to grow. You're going to call in a partner that triggers you in the exact same way. There's a man named Terry Real, who's an incredible relationship therapist, who always says, you will marry the person that will stick the burning dagger into your eye when you're at your weakest point, so that you can learn how to love them, or something like that. He says something like that. But what he's saying is, you're going to attract the exact opposite, or the person that's necessary to trigger you enough to where you become aware of where you are not free, so that you can complete it, so you don't have to continue to repeat it. And then you find the new adaptive pattern. And then, just like in a video game, you have now passed that level and you can move on to the next boss, right? So with this person, I witnessed them get into the next relationship, and it was the same thing, until they actually mustered up the and it actually came from a place of anger. See, a lot of the times anger is a boundary that has been crossed, either externally from another person, or it could also be a boundary that we never even set. And then that anger gets turned inwards to ourselves for letting this person cross a boundary because we actually were the one responsible because we never actually said it. So this person finally witnessed the same pattern happening again and then did the scary thing, used that energy that was like, I'm going to claim this boundary right now, and this is what I am wanting, which is an incredibly vulnerable thing, and was able to complete that pattern. So I hope this is landing for you and giving you a deeper understanding of the biology and the reason, the primal reason on why we continue to repeat the same patterns over and over again. There is an understanding of hurt people. This is also my understanding of what ancestral trauma is. It's not something that happened thousands of years ago. It just means that hurt people. Because when we have a wound that has been triggered inside of us, we will continue to repeat that thing over and over again. And it happens in relationships, whether it's our kids, whether it's our partner. We'll continue to repeat the same thing over and over again until we actually go back and find the thing that we needed to complete. There is another term called a transitional character, meaning that a transitional character is someone in the bloodline that found a way to metabolize the poison that was passed down to them, to metabolize the abuse, the abandonment, the criticism that was put onto them that was probably not even about this other person, but was about the person that did it to them. But a transitional character is the one who metabolizes the poison and finds a way to alchemize it and turn it into gold, to learn from it and pass it down to the next generation. They're the ones that said, no, I'm not passing this down, but I'm going to pass down the new adaptive pattern. And so maybe you are a transitional character. I think if you're listening to this, you probably are in some sort of capacity. And also, if you're listening to this, you're probably experiencing quite a bit of reenactment in your life. We all do. It's innate inside of us. We do not have to put more pressure on ourselves as if we are broken. This is a fundamental biological impulse that happens within us. It happens to everyone. There is no guru or human that is exempt from this pattern. But this is how life works because life wants to continue to grow. Your soul wants to continue to grow. Your biology wants to continue to grow. And so my invitation to you is to notice within your life, what are the things that are repeating over and over and over again? And what was the intelligence of this pattern? Because probably at some point, this pattern helped you. I'll share and I'll wrap this podcast up with a pattern that happened to me, or a pattern that has shown up in my life quite a bit. Is that I experienced growing up dealing with some addiction and chaos in my household. As an only child, I learned that the safest place is inside of myself. And so two things happened. I became hyper vigilant of my surroundings. I learned how to read people, to be able to pick up the smallest minute detail inside of someone's face to tell, is this person about to lose their shit? Are they about to create a fight? I would be able to pick up on small minute details. And also, when you're a child, you're co-regulating to everyone around you. You're like a sponge absorbing your reality as if everything that's going on around you is actually your fault. And so a lot of the times kids take responsibility. If a parent is dysregulated in some way, they want to fix it. They want to run to mommy or daddy and say, hey, mommy and daddy, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? We actually want to try to fix the issue. So one thing, I became hyper vigilant and sensitive, and it became a superpower for me to read people and to attune to people. And then what happens is I would completely lose myself in that. And then I would just put up this massive wall inside of me, because it would be too much for me to handle. It was too much, too soon, too fast trauma, right? And so I learned to put up this massive wall and protect myself, and learned how to go inward and play with myself and live in my imagination and throw up this massive wall and basically avoid the outside world. And I watched this same pattern in my relationships over the past few years, where I would completely connect and try to do anything I possibly could for this other human. And at some point, I would lose myself in their experience. And then I would swing the pendulum back to completely cutting off connection and avoiding and withdrawing love and just going deep into myself. And I watched myself complete this pattern over and over again until I realize, oh shit, I'm reenacting this over and over again. It's the same pattern I have with my mom. And the thing for me was to become aware of not trying to fix or change this other person, that I can also be sensitive and pick up on all the things that are going on. And I also don't have to lose myself in it. I can maintain that connection to myself while staying open. And it's taken me a while to repattern it. And guys, the last thing I want to leave you with is that it takes a long time for us to repattern things. We negate how long it takes to get us to change. Change takes time. Your body changes slowly over time. It takes repetitive choosing of your mind over and over and over again, because your mind is malleable. You can change it like this, but it takes repetitive choosing from your mind to see physical change. So being super aware and conscious when you're in a relationship and you see yourself reenacting, and this doesn't have to be romantic relationships, it could be business relationships too, it could be any relationships, it could be relationships with your children. But to notice, first off, we can't do anything if we don't notice it, see where we're repeating it, and then consciously make the choice to choose the new pattern over and over again until we repeat it and then we complete it. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something, heard something that landed in your brain centers in a new way. If you enjoyed this, please leave me a review below. Leave me a comment, hit that like, subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode. Until next time.